There have been a lot of rumors about your love life. Did you meet anyone special in Germany?
It's been a long road coming to terms with losing him. Even now, the anger and confusion haven't fully faded. 15 years later, it still feels impossible to believe he's really gone. Today, we peel back the curtain on a legend whose name echoes through generations, Elvis Presley. Known as the King of Rock and Roll, his story is one of dazzling fame, unshakable charisma, and hidden battles no one truly saw. Until now. For the first time, thanks to the insights of his closest confidant and bodyguard, Sonny West, we're diving deep into the untold side of Elvis's life. We'll uncover shocking secrets, lost loves, heartbreaking struggles, and the forces that shaped and haunted him. This isn't just the story of a superstar. It's the story of a man, brilliant, vulnerable, and trapped by the very spotlight that made him a legend. Get ready to see Elvis Presley as you've never seen him before. Before the fame, before the legend, there was just a boy from Tupelo, Mississippi. A dreamer with a deep love for music and an even deeper bond with his family. Elvis Aaron Presley grew up in humble beginnings, surrounded by the soulful sounds of gospel hymns, the twang of country music, and the gritty pulse of the blues. These early influences would quietly brew inside him, shaping the musical force he would one day unleash onto the world. As a teenager in Memphis, he was just another face in the crowd, shy, polite, and deeply attached to his mother. But when he stepped into Sun Records for the first time, something extraordinary was set into motion. A blend of raw emotion, energetic rhythm, and unmistakable style burst from his voice, a sound no one had heard before. It wasn't long before Elvis caught the attention of Sam Phillips, who saw in him the potential to bridge the racial divide in music. With his soulful delivery and electrifying stage presence, Elvis would go on to shatter barriers, introducing a brand new era of American music. By 1956, the world wasn't just listening, it was mesmerized. He wasn't simply a singer, Elvis was a phenomenon. His voice could stir something deep inside you, joy, heartbreak, rebellion, sometimes all at once. His swiveling hips and smoldering looks ignited a cultural revolution, and the media quickly crowned him the King of Rock and Roll. But the crown came with a heavy weight. Fame hit him like a tidal wave. Television appearances, movie deals, sold-out concerts, all came flooding in at a breakneck pace. Overnight, Elvis transformed from a local sensation to a global icon. His image was everywhere. His sound became the soundtrack of a generation yearning for something fresh, something daring, something real. Across his career, Elvis achieved what few could even dream of. He was inducted into not just one, but 5 separate halls of fame: rock and roll, country, gospel, rockabilly, and R&B. His impact wasn't confined to one genre. He crossed boundaries, blurred lines, and stitched together a tapestry of sounds that resonated with millions across racial, cultural, and generational divides. Yet behind the flashbulbs and the screaming fans, Elvis remained, at heart, that same boy from Tupelo. Fame brought unimaginable wealth, but it also built walls around him. Despite his success, he wrestled with a profound loneliness that few ever saw. The mystery around Elvis wasn't just about his music or his magnetic charm. It was about the man no one fully knew, the one who laughed with friends, cried in private, who longed for a simple life even as the world demanded he be larger than life. His early musical influences, the emotional power of gospel, the storytelling heart of country, and the raw honesty of the blues never left him. They were stitched into the fabric of his being, grounding him even when the chaos of fame tried to pull him away from his roots. Elvis Presley didn't just change music, he changed culture itself. He challenged the status quo, redefined cool, and gave a voice to youth who felt misunderstood. He opened doors that had long been locked and inspired countless artists who would follow in his footsteps. But every great story has layers, and while millions saw the glittering surface of Elvis's rise, few ever understood the storms he weathered beneath. In the next part of our journey, we'll start peeling back those layers, revealing the man behind the myth, the triumphs, the heartbreaks, and the hidden battles that made Elvis Presley a true American legend. Behind every larger-than-life figure stands a group of people who see the moments no one else does. The struggles, the doubts, the battles fought in silence. For Elvis Presley, one of those trusted few was Sonny West. Delbert Bryant. Sonny West wasn't just another bodyguard. He was a loyal friend, a brother in arms, someone who stood at Elvis's side during the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Sonny, alongside his cousin Red West, formed part of an elite group known famously as the Memphis Mafia. The Memphis Mafia wasn't your typical security detail. They were a close-knit circle, confidants, companions, protectors, who lived in Elvis's orbit. They traveled with him, partied with him, shielded him from dangers seen and unseen. To outsiders, they looked like an entourage. To Elvis, they were family. Sonny West took his role seriously. His job wasn't just about fending off overzealous fans. It was about protecting Elvis from the harsher realities of fame itself. But as the years rolled on, Sonny began to notice troubling changes. Elvis, once so full of life and spirit, started to fade behind a haze of prescription medications and exhaustion. Those closest to him tried to intervene. They voiced their concerns quietly at first, hoping Elvis would listen, hoping love and loyalty would be enough to bring him back from the edge. But fame is a powerful isolator. And as Elvis sank deeper into dependency, even those who loved him most found themselves pushed away. Tensions within the Memphis Mafia reached a breaking point. Fearing for Elvis's health, and frustrated by their inability to save him, Sonny and Red confronted the harsh reality. They were no longer welcome. In 1976, under the direction of Elvis's father, Vernon Presley, Sonny and Red West were unceremoniously fired. The dismissal wasn't just a professional blow, it was personal. These men had devoted their lives to standing guard over Elvis, only to find themselves cast out when they tried to speak the truth. In their heartbreak and desperation, Sonny and Red made a controversial choice. They decided to tell the world what they had seen. They collaborated with another former bodyguard, Dave Hebler, to write Elvis, What Happened? The book wasn't written out of spite. It was a cry for help, a desperate attempt to jolt Elvis awake before it was too late. Within its pages, they detailed his spiraling addiction, the isolation, the self-destructive behavior no fan ever glimpsed under the glittering stage lights. When Elvis, What Happened? Hit the shelves, it sent shockwaves across the world. Fans were outraged. Critics called it a betrayal. But for Sonny West, the choice had never been about money or revenge. It had been about love, a painful act of love, taken when every other option seemed exhausted. The timing could not have been more tragic. Just weeks after the book's release, Elvis Presley passed away. The world mourned the king of rock and roll, but those who truly knew him mourned something far deeper. The man he could have been if only he had been able to find his way back to himself. Sonny West's perspective forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. When does loyalty mean speaking out, even if it costs you everything? Was it betrayal to reveal Elvis's darkest struggles? Or was it the ultimate act of friendship, a final desperate effort to save a man drowning in his own fame? As we continue this journey into Elvis's hidden world, we'll see more of the pressures that crushed him, the loves that lifted him, and the legacy he left behind. Because to truly understand Elvis Presley, we have to look beyond the legend and into the fragile, aching heart of the man himself. Long before the world knew his name, before the lights, the screams, and the fame, Elvis Presley was just a shy, soft-spoken young man trying to find his place in a new city. It was in Memphis, Tennessee, where he first crossed paths with Dixie Lock, a meeting that would mark the beginning of a pure, heartfelt love story, untouched by the pressures of stardom. They met through a youth group at the First Assembly of God Church. Elvis was still finding his voice, both musically and personally. Dixie was just 15, Elvis 19, both of them navigating the uncertain terrain of youth. Drawn together by shared values, their bond formed quickly, rooted in simple pleasures, church outings, roller skating nights, and long conversations about dreams and futures. In those early days, Elvis wasn't the king. He was just a boy with a guitar, a dream, and a lot of nervous energy. Dixie gave him something steady, something real to hold on to. Her presence was a calming force, grounding him at a time when his world was just beginning to spin faster. Their relationship wasn't flashy or complicated. It was filled with innocence and genuine affection. They spent evenings at the movies, attended dances, and shared a love for gospel music that tied them even closer. Elvis even brought Dixie home to meet his parents, who adored her as if she were already family. For a young Elvis, Dixie's love offered more than companionship. It fulfilled an emotional need that would stay with him for the rest of his life. She saw him not as a rising star, but simply as Elvis, kind, awkward, passionate. That unconditional support gave him the confidence to chase his dreams. But as the saying goes, nothing gold can stay. As Elvis's career took flight, the demands on his time grew heavier. Long tours, studio sessions, and an increasingly frenzied fan base began to pull him away from the quiet, ordinary life he and Dixie had built. It wasn't just the distance. Fame brought temptation. Women flocked to Elvis wherever he went, drawn to his looks, his charm, his growing legend. While Elvis tried to reassure Dixie of his love, she couldn't ignore the letters, the whispered rumors, the undeniable changes she saw in him. The boy who once clung to his roots now started to transform into a larger-than-life figure. He dyed his hair, changed his style, and embraced the attention that once embarrassed him. Though Elvis still cared for Dixie deeply, the world he was entering had little room for a quiet, private romance. The emotional strain grew heavier with each passing month. Dixie struggled with the growing realization that the Elvis she had fallen in love with was slipping away, consumed by a life she could never fully be part of. In 1955, after nearly 2 years together, they made the painful decision to part ways. Their breakup wasn't filled with anger or betrayal. It was simply two young people forced apart by circumstances bigger than either of them could control. They ended their relationship on good terms, but the ache of what they lost lingered in both of their hearts. For Dixie, Elvis would always be her first love, a tender chapter of her life she never forgot. She would go on to marry, have children, and build a life of her own. But the memories of those simple, beautiful days with Elvis remained tucked safely away, untouched by time. For Elvis, the love he shared with Dixie became a symbol of a simpler, sweeter time. before the adoration, the chaos, and the crushing expectations. Throughout his life, he often looked back on that period with a mix of longing and sadness, remembering what it felt like to be loved simply for who he was, not for who the world wanted him to be. Their story reminds us that even the brightest stars are human at their core, shaped by early experiences of love, loss, and the delicate hope of being truly understood. And for Elvis Presley, the memory of Dixie Lock would forever remain one of the purest and most bittersweet parts of his remarkable, complicated journey. In the late 1950s, while stationed in Germany during his military service, Elvis Presley's life changed forever. It wasn't the army drills or the international spotlight that would leave the deepest mark on him during that time. It was a shy 14-year-old girl named Priscilla. Their meeting was almost accidental, a casual introduction at a house party attended by American military families. Priscilla, with her soft-spoken nature and striking beauty, immediately caught Elvis's eye. She was barely a teenager. He was already a global sensation at 24. Yet despite the age gap, there was an undeniable pull between them, a strange mixture of innocence and fascination. At first, Elvis was cautious. He knew the dangers: public scrutiny, parental concern, and his own growing fame. But over time, the connection deepened. What began as quiet conversations and tender moments grew into a bond that neither time nor distance could easily break. After Elvis returned to the United States in 1960, their relationship faced enormous challenges. For a while, letters and occasional calls were their only link. But Elvis couldn't forget her. And 3 years later, with her parents' reluctant blessing, Priscilla moved to Memphis to complete her schooling while living near Graceland under strict supervision. During this time, Elvis helped shape Priscilla's transformation from a shy, sheltered teenager into the poised young woman who would eventually become his wife. He influenced everything from her style of dress to her hair and makeup, crafting an image that matched his vision of the perfect woman. At first, Priscilla willingly embraced these changes. She adored Elvis, trusted him, and wanted to please him. But over time, the pressures mounted. The expectations placed on her, the constant need to conform to his idealized image, began to wear away at her sense of identity. Despite these struggles, their love culminated in a much celebrated wedding. On May 1, 1967, Elvis and Priscilla married in a private ceremony at the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas. It was a brief affair, simple, fast, and heavily managed by Elvis's team. Yet for fans around the world, it seemed like a fairy tale come true. Their marriage was blessed with the arrival of their daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, in February 1968. Elvis was overjoyed at becoming a father. In Lisa Marie, he found a pure love, untainted by fame or expectations, and she quickly became the light of his life. However, beneath the surface, the cracks in their marriage were growing. The strains of Elvis's career, the endless demands from his fans and business obligations, and the emotional distance created by his tours and Hollywood projects began to erode their relationship. Priscilla found herself longing for more independence, more control over her own life, something Elvis's tightly controlled world couldn't easily offer. As she matured, the once shy girl grew into a woman who needed more than the tightly choreographed life that had been crafted for her. By 1972, the emotional distance between them had become too great. Priscilla made the painful decision to leave. Their divorce was finalized the following year, but their story didn't end there. Despite the end of their marriage, Elvis and Priscilla managed to maintain a deep bond of respect and affection, especially for the sake of their daughter. They navigated the delicate dance of co-parenting with remarkable grace, ensuring that Lisa Marie always felt loved and protected by both parents. Elvis remained a significant presence in Priscilla's life, and Priscilla, in turn, continued to honor the role he played in shaping her world. Their relationship stands as a powerful reminder that love, even when tested by fame, change, and personal growth, can endure in unexpected ways. It wasn't a perfect fairy tale. It was messy, complicated, and heartbreakingly human, just like Elvis himself. As we continue to uncover the private life of the king, we begin to see that behind the legend was a man longing for connection, wrestling with expectations, and often losing himself in the process. After his marriage to Priscilla ended, Elvis Presley found himself searching once again for companionship, a connection that could soothe the loneliness fame had carved into him. Over the years, he entered into several important relationships, each leaving a mark on his heart in different ways. Shortly after the divorce, Elvis met Sheila Ryan, a stunning young model whose spirit was as lively as her beauty was undeniable. She wasn't the jealous type, and that gave Elvis a rare sense of peace. Sheila accepted him as he was, the good, the complicated, and the broken parts too. Their romance began quickly, fueled by a mutual need for excitement and comfort. Sheila traveled with Elvis on tour, became a familiar face at Graceland, and brought an energy that made him feel young and alive again. But despite the fun and lightness she brought into his life, Elvis's inner turmoil never fully disappeared. The demands of fame were still heavy on his shoulders, and his health was already beginning to show signs of strain. During this period, another important woman remained a lasting memory in Elvis's heart: Anne Margaret. Their connection had first ignited years earlier on the set of Viva Las Vegas, and even though the timing had never been right for a full-blown relationship, the bond between them was undeniable. Anne Margaret was not just another pretty face. She was vibrant, ambitious, and one of the few women who could truly match Elvis's charisma and star power. Their chemistry, both on and off screen, was electric, a magnetic force neither could deny. Although their romantic relationship eventually ended, a deep and abiding friendship remained, a mutual respect that endured long after the spotlight faded. Then came Linda Thompson, perhaps the woman who knew Elvis most intimately during his later years. A former beauty queen and a sharp, caring woman, Linda entered Elvis's life when he needed more than just romance. He needed rescue. Linda became more than just a girlfriend. She was a partner, a nurse, a confidant. Living with him at Graceland, she helped manage his increasingly fragile health, ensuring he took his medications properly, staying by his side through endless nights of pain and anxiety. Theirs was a relationship built on deep affection and shared understanding. Linda loved Elvis not for the image he projected to the world, but for the vulnerable man he was behind closed doors. She stayed with him through some of his darkest times, trying desperately to pull him back from the edge. But even the strongest love sometimes isn't enough to save someone who's determined to drift away. As Elvis's dependency on prescription drugs deepened and his emotional volatility grew harder to manage, Linda made the heartbreaking decision to leave. She realized she could not watch the man she loved destroy himself piece by piece. These relationships, with Sheila, Anne Margaret, and Linda, each reflected a different side of Elvis: the playful spirit, the passionate performer, the broken soul seeking comfort. And yet, in the end, all these loves shared a common thread. They all bore witness to a man fighting a battle within himself, a battle that none of them could win for him. For Elvis, the emotional toll of these broken connections ran deep. Each goodbye left him a little more isolated, a little more lost. He longed for love, but fame always seemed to get in the way. creating a distance that even his closest partners could never quite bridge. As we peel back more layers of Elvis's life, it becomes clear that for all the adoration he received from the world, true, lasting connection often slipped just out of reach. Love surrounded him, but loneliness never truly let him go. In the final chapter of his life, Elvis Presley found a new source of hope in a young woman named Ginger Alden. When they met, Elvis was no longer the energetic rebel who had set the world on fire 2 decades earlier. He was a man searching for stability, for someone who could offer him peace after years of chaos. Ginger was only 20 years old when she entered Elvis's life. A former beauty queen with a warm smile and a kind heart, she represented the fresh start Elvis desperately craved. Their connection was immediate. After years of turbulent relationships and emotional heartbreak, Ginger seemed to offer a calm that Elvis had not felt in a very long time. Unlike many before her, Ginger met Elvis at a point when he was clinging tightly to dreams of a simpler, quieter life. The whirlwind of fame had taken its toll, and he longed for something more grounded: a home, a marriage, a future beyond the relentless pressures of the public eye. Elvis wasted no time making his intentions clear. Just a few months after they began dating, he proposed. The engagement ring he gave Ginger was extravagant, sparkling with promises of a better tomorrow. He spoke of marriage, children, and a slower, more peaceful life together. Dreams that reflected a deep yearning for normalcy that had long eluded him. Ginger became a central figure in Elvis's world during those last months. She traveled with him, spent time at Graceland, and shared private, tender moments that stood in stark contrast to the turmoil swirling outside their gates. To those who knew him, it seemed that Elvis had finally found someone who could anchor him, someone who offered a glimpse of hope when everything else felt uncertain. Yet beneath the surface, the reality of Elvis's declining health could not be ignored. Years of substance abuse, combined with the crushing demands of his career, had left his body frail and vulnerable. Ginger stood by him, hopeful, believing that together they could still build the future they had dreamed about. Then, on the morning of August 16, 1977, that fragile hope was shattered. Ginger found Elvis unresponsive in the bathroom of Graceland. Despite desperate attempts to revive him, Elvis Presley, the boy from Tupelo who had become a global icon, was gone. He was only 42 years old. For Ginger, the experience was devastating. One moment, they were planning their life together. The next, she was left to face the world with a grief too immense for words. In interviews years later, she described the scene as one that would haunt her forever. The heartbreaking end to a love story that had barely begun. Elvis's death sent shockwaves across the world. Fans mourned the loss of their idol, but Ginger mourned the loss of a man she loved, a man she believed was on the brink of finding true happiness again. Their short time together was filled with dreams that now would never come true. And yet, even in those final days, Elvis showed that deep down, he still believed in love, in family, in the simple joys he had spent a lifetime chasing, but never fully captured. Ginger Alden's story with Elvis serves as a bittersweet reminder of what he longed for most: a peaceful life, a loving partner, and a second chance to live for himself, rather than the world's expectations. As we move deeper into the final chapters of Elvis Presley's life, the picture becomes ever clearer. Behind the legend was a man yearning not for more fame, but for the kind of love and happiness that fame had so often kept just out of reach. At the very heart of Elvis Presley's story stands one woman, his mother, Gladys Presley. Long before the world would come to know him as the king of rock and roll, he was simply her beloved son, fiercely protected and deeply loved. Their bond was unlike anything else in Elvis's life, shaping not only his character, but the very foundation of who he would become. Gladys was Elvis's first home, his first teacher, and his first source of unconditional love. Raised in poverty, she taught Elvis the importance of kindness, humility, and faith. Lessons that stayed with him long after fame took him far from their humble beginnings in Tupelo, Mississippi. She was his anchor in a chaotic world. Even as a young boy, Elvis was sensitive, emotional, and yearning for acceptance. Gladys recognized his unique spirit and nurtured it. She instilled in him a deep sense of loyalty to family, a respect for hard work, and an understanding that true worth isn't measured in money or fame. As Elvis's dreams began to unfold, Gladys watched with both pride and profound fear. She worried about the world he was stepping into, a world filled with temptations, pressures, and dangers she couldn't shield him from. In her heart, she feared that fame would consume the gentle boy she had raised, pulling him away from the values she had worked so hard to instill. And she was right to worry. As Elvis's star rose higher, the distance between the simple life they once shared and the glittering, demanding reality of fame grew greater. Though he tried to stay grounded, the pull of success was strong, and Elvis often found himself caught between the world he knew and the world he had created. Despite his rising fame, Elvis remained deeply connected to his mother. He called her daily when he was away, showered her with gifts, and built Graceland partly with the dream of giving her the home she had always deserved. Yet even all the riches in the world couldn't protect their bond from tragedy. In 1958, while Elvis was serving in the U.S. Army, Gladys fell gravely ill. The news shattered him. Rushing home on emergency leave, Elvis arrived just in time to say goodbye. Gladys passed away at the young age of 46, leaving a void in Elvis's life that nothing and no one could ever fill. Her death devastated him. Those closest to Elvis said he was never the same after losing his mother. He collapsed at her funeral, overcome by a grief so deep it seemed to swallow him whole. For Elvis, Gladys wasn't just his mother. She was his emotional lifeline, the one person who truly understood him without expectation or judgment. In the years that followed, as Elvis navigated the dizzying highs and crushing lows of superstardom, the lessons Gladys taught him remained embedded in his heart. Her emphasis on compassion, humility, and staying true to one's roots echoed in the way Elvis treated fans, supported charities, and tried, even against impossible odds, to remain grounded amidst the madness. Even in his most troubled times, Elvis often spoke of her. Friends would hear him reminisce about her laughter, her unwavering faith in him, and the comfort of her unconditional love. It was clear that no matter how far he traveled, a part of Elvis was always reaching back toward that simpler, safer world where he was just a boy loved by his mama. Gladys Presley's influence was not a chapter in Elvis's life. It was the thread woven through every part of his journey. Her spirit stayed with him in his triumphs, in his heartbreaks, and in his endless search for meaning beyond fame. As we continue unraveling the life of Elvis Presley, we see that behind the glitter and gold stood a man whose heart remained forever tethered to the lessons of love, loyalty, and humility taught by the woman he loved most, his mother, Gladys. For all the titles Elvis Presley earned throughout his life, icon, superstar, legend, the one he cherished most was simply Dad. When Lisa Marie Presley was born on February 1st, 1968, Elvis's world shifted. In his daughter, he found a love unlike anything he had ever known, pure, and unconditional, untouched by fame or expectation. From the moment he held her in his arms, Lisa Marie became the center of his universe. Elvis's devotion to his little girl was evident in everything he did. He spoiled her with gifts, lavished her with affection, and made sure she always knew she was loved. To Elvis, Lisa wasn't just his child. She was his lifeline, his anchor in a world that often felt overwhelming and cold. Despite the chaos swirling around his career, Elvis worked hard to protect Lisa from the harsh glare of the spotlight. He was determined to shield her from the pressures that fame had forced upon him from such a young age. When she was with him at Graceland, Lisa was allowed to be just a child, free to laugh, play, and explore, without the weight of her father's celebrity looming over her. Elvis created a magical world for Lisa at Graceland. Pony rides in the backyard, late-night golf cart adventures, extravagant Christmas mornings. These moments weren't about showing off. They were Elvis's way of creating a haven where she could experience the simple joys of childhood that fame had stolen from him. When Lisa visited, Elvis would often drop everything just to spend time with her. Business meetings could wait. Recording sessions could be rescheduled. Nothing mattered more to him than those precious hours when he could just be a father, not a performer. Those close to him often spoke about the transformation they saw when Lisa Marie was around. The weight he normally carried seemed to lift. His smile came easier. His laughter rang louder. She brought out the side of Elvis that the world rarely got to see. Playful, silly, tender, and full of pure joy. He wasn't afraid to be goofy with her, crawling on the floor, making faces, telling bedtime stories in funny voices. For Lisa Marie, her father wasn't just a music legend. He was her hero, her safe place, her biggest fan. Even as Lisa grew older and Elvis's struggles with health and dependency became more apparent, his love for her never wavered. He wanted her to have a life free from the loneliness and pressures he had faced. He dreamed of a better future for her, one where she could be herself without the burden of a famous last name. Privately, Elvis often expressed deep fears about whether he was doing enough to protect her, to guide her in a world he knew could be cruel. These worries ate at him, but he never let them show around Lisa. Around her, he was simply Daddy, her protector and constant source of love. In many ways, Lisa Marie saw the truest version of Elvis. Not the star, not the troubled soul struggling behind closed doors, but the man who loved with everything he had, even when he felt he had little left to give. Their bond was unbreakable. Even after his passing, Lisa Marie spoke often of the special connection she shared with her father. A connection built not on fame, but on countless quiet moments of love, laughter, and understanding. As we continue exploring Elvis Presley's life, it's clear that beyond the tours, the records, and the flashing lights, his greatest joy and proudest achievement was being a father. And in those simple, tender moments with Lisa Marie, we find the Elvis that only a few ever truly knew. A man whose heart, despite all the pressures of the world, remained full of love. At first, fame felt like a dream for Elvis Presley, a reward for all the years spent chasing a distant, flickering hope. But over time, that dream hardened into a prison, one that slowly stripped away his freedom, his trust, and, eventually, his health. Balancing the demands of superstardom with the need for a private life became an impossible task. Everywhere Elvis turned, eyes followed. Cameras clicked. Rumors spread. Every move he made was public property. And finding a moment of peace grew harder with each passing year. As the world celebrated him, Elvis found himself building walls to protect what little personal life he had left. The walls didn't just keep out the fans, they also kept out friends, family, and sometimes even love. Fame created a distance between Elvis and everyone else, and slowly he began to lose touch with the world beyond the gates of Graceland. Paranoia crept in quietly at first. Who could he really trust? Were the people around him loyal because they cared, or because they wanted something from him? Over time, even simple acts of kindness were viewed with suspicion. Trust became a rare and precious thing. And Elvis found himself growing more isolated, even among those who loved him most. As the isolation deepened, so too did the need for something to dull the ache. Prescription medications became a way to silence the noise in his mind, to calm the anxiety, to find sleep in restless nights. What began as a means of coping slowly evolved into dependence. Doctors, friends, even employees fed into the cycle, sometimes knowingly, sometimes with the best intentions. In a world that demanded constant performance, constant energy, constant perfection, Elvis relied more and more on pills just to keep up appearances. The toll on his body was devastating. His once lean frame grew heavier. His energy, once boundless, flickered and faded. His voice, the instrument that had once set hearts ablaze, began to weaken under the strain. Yet despite all of this, Elvis kept pushing, kept performing, kept trying to be what the world expected of him. Emotionally, the damage was just as profound. The loneliness gnawed at him. The constant pressure to be Elvis Presley, not the man, but the myth, weighed heavier than ever. Behind the dazzling stage lights, the crowds, and the applause, he was crumbling. He longed for a normal life, but he couldn't escape the machine his fame had built around him. Relationships suffered. Old friends drifted away. Promises of change faded into familiar patterns of exhaustion and dependency. Each attempt to reclaim control was met with resistance. From the industry, from those who profited off him, and sometimes from Elvis himself. He became trapped in a cycle of brief highs, followed by long, devastating lows. His health problems multiplied, but the hope that he could still turn things around never completely left him. Deep down, a part of Elvis still believed he could find peace, could return to the simplicity he once knew. But time was running out. The very fame that had lifted him to unimaginable heights had also slowly, quietly broken him down. And in his final years, it was clear that the battle between the man and the myth was nearing its tragic conclusion. Understanding Elvis's struggles helps us see the full picture. Not just the legend who changed music forever, but the human being who carried burdens few could comprehend. His story is a reminder that fame, for all its glitter, often comes at an unbearable price. When Elvis Presley first stepped onto a stage, no one could have imagined the tidal wave of change he was about to unleash. More than just a singer, Elvis rewrote the rules of music, fashion, and pop culture, leaving a legacy so powerful it still shapes the world today. He didn't simply perform songs, he transformed them. By blending gospel's emotional pull, country's storytelling soul, and the raw energy of rhythm and blues, Elvis forged a sound entirely his own. A sound that spoke to a restless generation desperate for something new. With every note, he broke barriers, crossed divides, and stitched together musical worlds that had long been kept apart. His impact didn't stop with music. Elvis changed the way people dressed, the way they moved, even the way they dreamed. The slick pompadour, the flashy jumpsuits, the provocative swagger. He challenged every expectation and made individuality cool long before it became a cultural buzzword. Wherever he went, he created a sensation. Crowds screamed, cameras flashed, parents fretted, and teenagers found their voice. Elvis wasn't just a musician. He became a symbol of youthful rebellion, freedom, and fearless self-expression. In a time when the world often demanded conformity, he gave people permission to be bold, to be different, to be themselves. His influence on future generations of artists cannot be overstated. Legends like the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, and countless others have all cited Elvis as a foundational inspiration. Without him, the landscape of popular music and popular culture itself would look profoundly different. But Elvis's true legacy isn't just measured in chart-topping hits or sold-out shows. It's in the way he made people feel. Whether it was the thrill of seeing him on stage for the first time, the comfort of hearing his voice on the radio, or the spark of rebellion he ignited in hearts around the world, Elvis left behind a feeling that time could never erase. Even today, decades after his passing, his name evokes instant recognition. His music continues to be rediscovered by new generations, his influence echoing through every corner of pop culture. From Hollywood films to fashion runways to global music charts, Elvis's spirit is everywhere, alive in ways that few could have ever predicted. Those who knew him best, like Sonny West and other members of the Memphis Mafia, often spoke not just of his fame, but of his humanity. They remembered the man who could light up a room with his laugh, who showed loyalty and kindness when the cameras were off. Sonny West once said that behind all the glitz, Elvis remained, at heart, a humble boy from Mississippi who never stopped caring about people. His closest friends and family recognized that while Elvis lived a life filled with unimaginable highs, he also carried heavy burdens. And yet, through it all, he never lost the essential spark that made him who he was. A spark of sincerity, generosity, and heart that endeared him to millions. In the end, Elvis Presley left behind more than a discography, more than an image frozen in time. He left behind a movement, a legacy of daring to dream bigger, love harder, and reach farther. His life was a reminder that one person, armed with talent and heart, could truly change the world. As we reflect on Elvis's journey, through all its brilliance and heartbreak, we see a man who lived loudly, loved deeply, and left a permanent mark on history. A mark that continues to shine brightly, long after the final curtain call. As we reach the end of Elvis Presley's story, one question still lingers. Was it right for Sonny West to share the personal struggles Elvis kept hidden from the world? Was it an act of betrayal, or was it a desperate cry for help, hoping to save the man he cared for from a path that seemed impossible to turn from? It's a complicated answer, one that touches on loyalty, love, and heartbreak. Sonny West, like many close to Elvis, witnessed firsthand the toll fame took on someone who never asked for all that came with it. Speaking out might have cost him a friendship, but perhaps it was also one final attempt to shed light on a man who had become trapped by his own legend. Through Elvis's life, through all his triumphs and all his tragedies, there are lessons that still echo today, lessons that go far beyond the bright lights and roaring crowds. First and foremost, Elvis's journey reminds us of the importance of staying grounded. No matter how high he rose, a part of Elvis always longed for the simplicity he left behind in Tupelo. Fame gave him everything he thought he wanted, but it also stripped away the parts of life he treasured most: family, privacy, and authenticity. His story serves as a powerful reminder that real happiness is rarely found in wealth or adoration, but in the quieter, everyday moments we often take for granted. Elvis's struggles also show the dangers of fame without true support. Surrounded by people who often told him only what he wanted to hear, Elvis lacked the kind of strong, honest relationships that could have helped him steer a different course. Without a solid foundation, the demands of the world can pull even the strongest spirit into chaos. And perhaps most importantly, his life highlights the irreplaceable value of authentic relationships. The few times Elvis found real connection with his mother, with Dixie, Priscilla, Lisa Marie, he found moments of true peace. Those who loved him, not as an icon, but as a human being, brought him more happiness than all the fame in the world ever could. In the end, Elvis Presley's story is not just one of talent and fame. It's a deeply human story of dreams achieved, of innocence lost, and of a lifelong battle to hold onto the parts of himself that mattered most. We remember Elvis not just because he changed music, not just because he lit up every room he walked into, but because he showed us what it means to reach for something bigger, to believe in magic even when the world grows cold. And even though he left this world far too soon, the spirit he carried lives on. In every song, every photograph, every heart that still beats faster at the sound of his voice, Elvis Presley remains, not just as a king of rock and roll, but as a symbol of hope, passion, and humanity. As we close this journey, we invite you to reflect on Elvis's life, not just through the lens of stardom, but through the eyes of the man behind the myth, a man who dreamed, loved, and hurt, just like all of us. If you found value in this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And join us as we continue to explore the lives of those who shaped the world in ways we still feel today.